Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tech Betting Show Week 4. I am your host, Andrew, joined with Adam, as always, to go through all your betting needs. Adam, we've had a game, as always, Giants-Cowboys last night. I stayed up and watched it. I am currently very tired as well, so if I start saying things that don't make sense, you now know why. So if the betting odds are terrible, that this could be the reason this week. I've got an excuse, which is good. But 20-15, 5-point game. Not great for a very ugly game, I think you can call it. What's your thoughts on it?
I saw the highlights of it. That was enough. There wasn't much.
Referees throwing flags. Is that all the highlights?
Well, and your kicker kicking. Thank God for him, eh? So yeah, that was about it really. There wasn't a lot else going on. So it was all a bit. It wasn't a great game. The one thing I would say is I think it was a bit more evenly matched than what I maybe thought it would be. And that's probably more of an indictment on the Cowboys than anything else. That was what surprised me the most.
Yeah, I think seeing this game on the slate before the season started, you go, well, that's a Cowboys blowout. That's a win. Giants are on a bit of a rebuild. Cowboys are looking to reach the playoffs. But in all fairness, after watching it, I think the Giants actually outplayed them for the majority of the game. They had the most of the ball. They moved it up and down the field quite nicely, just couldn't capitalize and get it in the end zone. So I think there's probably a lot to be worried about.
That was the other thing. Singletary had a tough one.
Yeah.
See, I've been saying this the last few weeks. Your O-line is great at stopping Daniel Jones from getting destroyed, but it's not good at creating lanes, and that's an issue. I think sometimes the run game kind of disappears, and then it makes it all harder.
I think it's going to be tough running the ball, but like you say, that Daniel Jones looks competent in through sort of 3 games now, which is probably a credit to Daboll. So, like I said, fingers crossed. I said to all you guys, fingers crossed we keep Daboll. I think that's key because there were some positives to take from it. Defense looked better. O-line looks great. Andrew Thomas is good. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, all good. So hopefully we can keep Daboll, sort the quarterback situation out, and move on from that. But yeah, some worrying times for the Cowboys. I think they've got some injuries as well. We've said it's an old team. If they get a few injuries, they're going to struggle, and they did. Obviously, Parsons and Lawrence both got injured during the game, and their O-line looks to be struggling with the youngsters too.
Yeah, not great.
Well, we'll jump into the Franchise Tag 5, the FTAG5 as we call it. Adam, don't laugh at that. It's a good name for it. So last week, you can probably guess, we went 3-2. It's kind of a standard thing, being let down by the Buccaneers against the Broncos and the Texans letting us down against the Vikings. All the others came in. Adam, the only one game you were worried about was the Lions versus the Cardinals, and that came in comfortably.
Yeah, it was I was a little surprised that the Cardinals didn't put as many points up as they did. I was also surprised the Lions didn't put as many points up as they did. So I felt it was going to be a much more offensive game. Came quite a defensive one. But yeah, there was quite a few shocks, wasn't there? Last week. So I mean, I don't think many people had the Broncos beating the Bucks, to be honest. So yeah, bit of a surprise, that one, and there was a few others as well.
But we'll move on to this week, and I'll give you my games that I've got. So my first game I've got, let's see if I can find it on there. Scroll. There we go. So odds have changed slightly. I only did it last night. Odds have changed slightly. I got this game at -1.5. It is now -2. I'd probably still take the bet, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Colts at the Colts. Like I said, I got it at -1.5. It's now -2. It's inside the field goal. Pittsburgh Steelers defense looks absolutely legit. Probably the best I've seen so far this year out of everybody. Justin Fields is looking competent, completing 73% of his passes. So, something that he's seeing the field, which is something we said he struggled with in Chicago. We know their run game. Arthur Smith does that well. Colts, I just don't know what you're going to get week in, week out from Richardson. I think, he's either going to come out and as we've all said, throw bombs or throw an interception or do nothing with it. They've had a couple of injuries too. I do feel like maybe they're going to have to lean on that run game with Jonathan Taylor, but equally against that Steelers defense, that's going to be tough to run through. So I think Steelers, I think it's a low scoring game and Steelers get it done again.
Yeah, I think this is surprising that it's only -2. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it got bigger as we got closer to the game. I know that the Colts are at home, and so maybe that's why people are sort of, they don't want to go too far that way. But the Steelers defense are incredibly impressive. Tied second against giving up rushing yards, fifth against giving up passing yards. And the Colts defense are the complete opposite, where they are currently bottom 32nd against giving up rushing yards and 21st when it comes to passing yards. Now, I think if you've got literally two different defenses that are polar opposite, this is where, the game is probably going to end up being played out. Your over-under is set at 40, so we're not exactly thinking that we're going to have a particularly high-scoring game here. So the defenses are the ones that are going to have to step up. I just can't see this Colts team being led by Anthony Richardson being clinical enough to be able to get through this incredibly good Steelers defense. He's so erratic. The ball is just all over the place, and if there happens to be a Colts receiver in the area, then that's a bonus. But we've there's no clue as to where that ball's going more often than not. And so I don't know how anyone can sort of be on their side when you're going up against a defense like this. His current pass completion percentage is 49.3, which is, that is horrific for an NFL quarterback. It's not an NFL quarterback standard at all. It's really, really poor. And I think because of that, you just can't, like I said, you just can't back them. And so, yeah, it's within the field goal. When I looked at it, you told me that you wanted to go for this game. I looked at it this afternoon. It was still -1.5. It's gone up to 2. It doesn't matter. It's the same.
The field goal, yeah.
I'm not expecting the Steelers to win by a lot, because I don't expect the Steelers to win any game by a lot.
No.
But I think it's going to be the same as what it's been for the last 3 weeks. And that's just a team that is going to grind out this win and just stop the Colts from being able to do anything.
Yeah, I think I heard earlier people don't like to back home underdogs. I think that's one thing you said. And also, apparently, people don't like to back the Steelers as a favourite. Apparently, they're more preferred to put money on them when they're underdogs, which is a bit of an odd one. But Tomlin has got a great record as an underdog going into games and covering the spread when he is that underdog. So, I'm with you. It's not going to be high scoring, but I just feel like they're going to get the job done. Like I said, I think Fields has been very good with the ball and done what he's needed to on offense to make sure they aren't turning it over and get the victory. So, yeah, I'm a little bit confident. I'm quietly confident on that one. My next game up, let's see if that one stayed the same, is... I can't even find it. There you go. There it is. And it is the same. It's still the same. So I have taken the Atlanta Falcons at home against the New Orleans Saints. They are -2.5. From what I've seen from the Falcons in the last few weeks, I feel like the defense is really, really good. The offense is good. I feel like they've shown me that they can go up against some of the bigger teams and play in those bigger games. The Saints, on the other hand, started off really, really well. Then I saw some errors. I think it's going to be a really close game. It was one of them. I think if they weren't playing each other, I probably would have liked both of them this week if on matchup, whoever they were playing. But I just feel like I'm seeing more from the Falcons in terms of consistency than I am from the Saints. So I'm going to take it's -2.5. It's inside the field goal. It could come down to a field goal this game, and I'm taking the Falcons for the victory on it.
Yeah, this is the one that's a little bit not sure, because I kind of agree with most of what you're saying when you come out and go, I think it'll be a close game. It's probably going to be within a field goal. I think the same thing here. Historically, I think these two teams, when they have played each other, that has always been quite a close game between the two. And I think you've seen the Saints offense has looked pretty impressive in the first 2 weeks, and then it struggled against an Eagles defense. And the thing with the Eagles defense is that we were saying in the first couple of weeks, it doesn't look very good. It's really struggling. And then they seem to sort of get it going in week 3 against the Saints. It's a little bit of a difficult one, this one. And I think because of that, I would probably steer clear of it myself. I think both offenses have serious potential to hurt the other one. I think the Falcons' weakness is that they can't stop the run. They really struggle with that. You've got Alvin Kamara, who is going to probably do very well against them. On the is they struggle against currently 25th against giving up passing yards. The Falcons and Kirk Cousins is, although they have Bijan, it does feel like, especially in the last game that they played, it felt like they were starting to become more of a passing offense. Darnell Mooney especially was getting very much involved. Drake London getting very much involved as well. And, they do have other options with Kyle Pitts as well. So it feels like they're both going to be able to hurt each other's defenses on this particular game. But it feels like it could be quite even. And that's why it's a little bit difficult. I think when you have that kind of game, personally, when you look at that and you can kind of come out and see, these are the stats, this is what you're thinking. And it's like, oh, I think they will get so many, but I think it'll be very tit for tat kind of thing. When you get that, I tend to veer more towards the plus than the minus. And I think that's just on a purely betting analytical angle of thinking obviously incredibly unlikely it's going to be a tie, but I'd rather have the plus than the minus on two teams that I just think are very, very even. And so that's a really difficult one, and one that I would probably avoid.
I found it really hard this week in terms of picking the games, and I had to go for some of these ones that are a bit more, if you like, coin flippy, where you like both of them, but you favor one. Because when I looked at some of the other odds and some of the other games, I just wasn't confident in the spreads. I mean, you can see it there on the screen. I don't really want to touch a game that's plus 10.5 in a 49ers team that I'm not confident whether they can beat the Patriots by 10.5 at the moment. So I did find it really hard. They were either massive spreads or short spreads. So I went for the ones that I thought that's good. It's inside the field goal, and I do favor that team before looking at it. So I'm gonna take that one. So that's my logic and my thinking behind the bets this week. And with that, my next one I've got, which again I really struggled. Even this one, I thought, is that too much? But I'll put it in there, and that's the Bengals at the Panthers. The Bengals trying to get their first win. They're -4.5. I think the Panthers' victory last week, although they did look a lot better under Andy Dalton, the whole team looked better. It wasn't just Dalton played well and got the win. He sort of elevated everybody around him, and you kind of then have to go, oh, actually, maybe this team isn't bad like we thought, and it was just quarterback play that was the issue. But with that being said, I think it might be that sort of, when they have a quarterback change, the team tends to do a little bit better. There's a bit of false energy and a bit of false, like, oh yeah, let's try and get the win and things like that. And the Bengals, on the other hand, have really struggled this season so far. They played well against the Chiefs. They nearly got the win there, but something not quite clicking at the moment. And I just think this is the one that they really need to go. This is the one we need to win. Bring our A game in this one. It's against the Panthers. We can get a win. We can get on the board. We can get the ball rolling. It's -4.5. So a couple of field goals is all it is. It's under that 6-point threshold, which I quite like. So I'm favoring the Bengals to get their first victory in this one.
Yeah, they should win it. You know, as we've been saying for most of the weeks, apart from when they played the Chiefs, they should win it. And at -4.5, it's not like it's not a massive total that they need to cover in order to do this. Like you say, there's something not quite right there. I'm not quite sure what it is, although I do have a feeling that it might have something to do with Joe Mixon not being there. I think that is maybe where the overriding issue is, and just Zach Moss and Chase Brown, although they've done okay, it it kind of feels like they're not quite, when they're in the end red zone, they're not quite punching it in the way that they were, and I feel like that's Mixon not being there is what's causing the issue there. The Panthers, as you said, they looked a lot better under Andy Dalton. But not only that, I thought the defense looked all right as well. That was the other thing. I mean, they were playing the Raiders. So, you know, we know what the Raiders are like. They'll go and do something amazing one week and then be horrific the next. So you can't really put too much into that. And I do think Adam Thielen being out injured is a going to be a problem. And also Deontay Johnson's questionable as well, isn't he? I think they think he's going to play, but he is questionable. So that would be a worry, obviously, to firstly losing one, definitely. But if you lost both of them, that would be a serious problem for them. But yeah, I think that I think it's got to work, hasn't it? For the I mean, if they don't win this one, then I think there's serious questions to be asked when it comes to Zach Taylor. I think that as a team going 0-4, I mean, that's really, really difficult to come back from, especially when you're in a division like you are, with some of these teams that are just so incredibly solid and difficult to beat. So yeah, I think it's one of them where I probably would go with it, with the Bengals at -4.5. They should do it, and they should do it fairly comfortably. But given what's happened previously, it is a tough one to sort of really put your faith into.
Yeah, I think the problem with the Bengals, you think it's Joe Mixon not being there. I think the problem with the Bengals is they've let too many good names walk out the door. I think they're afraid to spend a bit of money on keeping people, especially on that defense. They've
I
let a lot
don't
of
think they
people.
have a lot of money, do they? I don't think the people who are owners, they're not like your Jerry Jones style, got plenty of
No, but
money type of owner.
no one's got. None of the owners are particularly like super poor, are they?
No, I
You know,
know, but I mean,
but
yeah,
I
but
just
some of these deals are not small either, sort of thing. And
if you
when
think
you
about
when
it, they're
you're
not
paying
willing. They've
Faro
not
and you need to pay Chase, and you talk
Well,
about
they've
paying
not been
Higgins,
willing to pay Higgins. They've not been willing to pay Chase. You know, they've let a few
well,
defenders
yeah,
walk out the door. So
it's a difficult one. I do think there's an element of just that they're not as rich as some of the other owners, and I think that's something that's been the case for them for a long time. So yeah, I do think that there's a little bit of a issue there, but at the same time, I mean, you know, you get into it, you kind of have to pay it, don't you? It's just how it is. So it's it's not you draft players like Chase and Higgins to pay. Essentially, it's like you don't do it just for the fun of it. So hopefully they'll be able to sort it out. But yeah, I think I think there is a bit of an issue there with that.
do you think if they do fall to 0-4 that we see Higgins get traded? Or I don't think they're stupid enough to trade Chase, but
No,
do you think
I don't. Yeah, I don't think they will trade Chase, because obviously, like you say, that would be a bit of a mental thing to do. But yeah, potentially someone like Higgins, it wouldn't be surprising. I think there's a few teams, isn't there now, who are sort of hovering around that thing, and people are talking about, well, do we trade, because you know we're not getting anywhere this year, and we need to do something. But yeah, I mean, I think any team that goes 0-4, you might need to start looking down that route and trying to get what you can for, especially as Higgins is probably going to be gone next year anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it's franchise tagged, isn't he? So
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard a lot of rumors that Steelers might be in the market to get another wide receiver. I've heard some rumors that maybe DeAndre Hopkins might be on their radar, but you know,
I mean, that kind of thing would make sense for someone like the Steelers, because they've basically got Pickens and
yeah. Well, they were after Ayuk,
Ray
weren't they?
McLeod.
They nearly landed Ayuk, didn't they? But
yeah, exactly. So it's like they need to they could probably do it. I think there's going to be a few. There's going to be a few teams out there who maybe are doing a bit better than what they thought. I mean, I don't think anyone really had the Steelers down for 3-0. They go 4-0. I think, which we've got them doing. Then I don't think that they necessarily had that. So yeah, maybe they will go for it and bring in another guy.
my next game up is. I mean, let's see if the odds have changed because it changed quite a few times. It's still the same now. I have got the Philadelphia Eagles -1.5 at the Buccaneers. We've seen some ups and some downs from both of these teams already, but that Eagles team is, for me, it's got a lot of talent on it. Maybe it just needed time for the new coordinators to gel with the team and get a few weeks. You would get some odd results week 1, week 2 through the NFL, and maybe now's their time that it all starts to click and those players start to perform. I think they might be without Devonta Smith. I know he's questionable, but AJ Brown's supposed to be back this week, maybe, not sure. That might all come down to whether this is a good bet or not, whether those two are good to go. Buccaneers, I don't know. They're a team where I feel like they're consistent. They're good, but they're not great. They're not going to get anywhere in the playoffs. They're a team that can qualify for the playoffs, but I think that's about it. Whereas I think the Eagles roster and team is a team that, if they get to the playoffs, can move a bit further. So I think that means, again, it's only 1.5. It's under the field goal. I'm going with the Eagles for the victory here.
Yeah, again, it's another very difficult one to come up with. The Bucks beat them, didn't they, last year in the playoffs? And I think that you're going to get a Buccaneers team that is probably going to want to put on a bit of a show after last week and losing out to the Broncos in the way that they did as well, at home as well. So I think that they might try and do a bit better. The Eagles, they're a bit of a strange team at the moment, where it feels like they're not really playing very well, yet they seem to be. They've won a few games and they don't look like the score is almost like the 2-1 is better than how they've played. But yeah, I think that they are definitely a very good team. Devonta Smith being out is a big loss. I think I'd be surprised, very surprised, if he played, from what they're saying. AJ Brown as well is, as you said, a bit of a game time decision, but it felt like it was trending as though he wasn't going to play. So, I mean, if you're losing them two, I know Dallas Goedert was questionable at one point. I think he missed a practice this week, but I think they think he's going to be back. It feels like it's Barkley all the way. And you're going up against the Bucks defense who are 25th against the run. So I think that they can still do pretty well. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think I'd be going on the Eagles side of this one. Again, it's a little bit like the Saints and Falcons, where it's a bit like, you've got two teams that feel like they're going to be pretty close. But when you look at the improvement of the defense last week with the Eagles, against the Saints offense that has done very well in the first 2 weeks, it does feel like that's the side that you want to be on. And so I think the -1.5 is probably where I'd go with it.
I mean, they've got Jahan Dotson and my favourite Johnny Wilson as well. So
it's not quite the same, is it? But yeah,
would you say? Covey had a good game. Is he still fit and healthy?
I think this really depends on if you've got AJ Brown out there.
Yeah, I think
if you've got
rushing him back. If Smith's out and they're like, look, AJ Brown's nearly ready, could do with another week, but they're going to rush him back. I think that could be really bad for them long term if that's the case. And
I don't feel like they really need to do it either. That's the other thing. No, it's like they're not. The yeah, I mean, the worst that happens is you become 2-2 after this game. So
if Matt LaFleur was their head coach and not Nick Sirianni, I'm sure he'd come up with a game plan where it's a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley and maybe Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts using his legs, and
Well, this is
we've
this is
still
the
got.
thing. Yeah, that's got it. See, everyone goes on Sirianni and stuff like that, and I understand it, and maybe that is the problem. It's like, and but I do come out and go, well, they do have an OC. You know, it's like he has turned up to make calls when it comes to the offense, and I know that the head coach can change it and all that, but that is his job, and it's a little bit like it kind of feels like the offense just hasn't really got clicking, and that's I personally think it's mainly because you've lost AJ Brown to injury. You know, Devon Smith played like half the game last week and got injured, so that doesn't help. To me, it's painfully obvious that they need to just feed Barkley. That just seems to be such an obvious thing, but I think they're so reluctant to do that because they don't want to overwork him or they don't want to make it seem obvious what they're going to do. But it just seems like such an obvious thing.
Yeah, he's already a favourite front runner for Offensive Player of the Year, and he's even in the conversation for MVP in a couple of people's minds. So, you know, it makes sense. Feed him. We've seen McCaffrey do it and be okay for a year. So, my last game up, really tough to pick this one. I was a bit unsure about. Again, the margin's quite high, but I've got faith in the team because of who they're playing, and I have put in the Houston Texans at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars looking in a bit of disarray at the moment. The play calling, the clock management, the quarterback play, the wide receivers don't look fantastic. We're not really getting anything loads out of the run game from them either. I know, Ingram's a big loss for them, but Texans, on the other hand, I don't think they've got out of second gear yet. I think once they do, they're going to start beating teams comfortably like we saw last year. They've no reason why they can't win this by a touchdown and more. I see this as a 7 to 10 point win or plus for them. So I locked in the Texans as my last team to get the victory.
Yeah, I kind of agree on this one. I think the -6 is definitely coverable for the Texans here. Saying that the Jags are in disarray is probably being quite kind to them at the moment. They are an absolute mess when it comes to pretty much everything. The pass rush is pretty much all they've got going for them. Once you get past that, it's not good. They're currently 30th when it comes to giving up passing yards. The corners are so easy to attack, and the front line is okay, and that's probably what's keeping things ticking over a little bit for them. But yeah, offensively, there's just not a lot there. I think Brian Thomas is good. I think we've seen flashes from him, and he could be pretty decent. But I think his quarterback just isn't it at the moment. He's really not with it at all. They haven't got any other weapons that are, you would say, are very good. Christian Kirk seems to have just completely disappeared. As you said, Evan Ingram's injured, so that's a blow because I feel like that is the safety net and the one who Trevor Lawrence really does rely on. So that's a problem with him still being out. The run game has been pretty much non-existent for them. And they're going up against the Texans defense, which are in the top 10 when it comes to giving up rushing and passing yards. So it's going to be a very difficult afternoon for them, I think. On the Texans side, Tank Dell's out, so he's not going to be around for this game. Nico Collins popped up on the injury report with a hamstring, I think. So hopefully
just resting.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be okay and he's not too bad. But they've still got Stephon Diggs there, Joe Mixon. It's a bit like, is he going to play? Is he not? But Cam Akers has looked fairly solid since he's come in. And just generally, they look a much better team, like all in every department. And I think when you see that, there are some others here where you can look at other games where you can, almost like Patriots 49ers 10.5 difference. And you sort of think, well, actually, the 49ers have struggled. They've got injuries. They haven't been very good. the Texans, yeah, okay, they've got a couple of injuries, but they've still got good players out there, and it just kind of feels a little bit like that the Texans are gonna sort of get this one done and probably fairly comfortably. So yeah, -6. I'm quite happy with that one.
I think sometimes when I'm looking at the betting and it is the spreads are quite difficult, I tend to go, which team's got the best quarterback, which team's got the best coach, and I kind of like feel that kind of works for me quite well. I think when you look at the teams I picked, I feel like I've got the team that's got the best quarterback on all of those sides of the ball. So that's kind of a logic sometimes when it comes to it. Quarterback, head coach, is there a matchup issue there? And I think the Texans Jags one is glaringly obvious that they've got Stroud is better than Lawrence, and
Yeah.
Doug Peterson is nowhere near as good as D'Amico Ryan. So that's kind of my thought process sometimes when I am looking at betting. That's the games. Adam, you think the Falcons Saints one is the one that you kind of that's 50-50?
Yeah,
the Buccaneers,
Falcons
Eagles, maybe
Saints
because of
one.
the injuries.
Yeah, the Falcons Saints ones feels like it could go either way. The Eagles one is, I think if AJ Brown's out there, I think that you're fine. But then if AJ Brown's out there, it's probably not going to be -1.5. So that's the one. They're the ones that are kind of a little bit maybe.
So, with that being said, which games would you like to put in place for them? Which ones did I miss? Which ones do you want to try and convince me on changing out?
So I was really tempted to go for the Patriots at +10.5 here. The 49ers offense without Christian McCaffrey, without Debo, it has been a struggle for them. They haven't done particularly well when it comes to the amount of points that they've put up. The over-under is at 40.5, so no one's really expecting a lot of points here. And I just kind of felt a little bit like that the Patriots are one of these teams where I'm not saying they're going to be fantastic, but I think that they would be able to put up, say, like, I could see them putting up 14. And then you just sort of think, okay, so does that mean that you see the 49ers hitting like 25? And they haven't, they didn't do that against the Vikings. And I don't think they did it last week either. No, they did. Did they do it against the Rams? Can't remember. Was it 27-24, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So they didn't do it against the Rams either. So this is more on a numbers thing. I feel like the +10.5 on the Patriots, I just think that they still have a good defense, and they're a team that are very capable. So I would, I'd be happy to take the +10.5 on that. The other one that I quite like the look of was the Broncos at the Jets. The Broncos just seem to, like last week against the Bucks, away from home as well, seem to just click for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know if this is just that Bo Nix has suddenly seen something and sort of worked it out a little bit, or whether it was just a bad day for the Bucks. But this Jets team, I think defensively, everyone goes, they're in a really, really good defense. Well, they're 23rd when it comes to giving up rushing yards. So they're not that great when it comes against the run. They're brilliant against pass. Having someone at Sauce Gardner there and all that, they do really well. But they give up plenty of rushing yards. Sean Payton's always been this coach, hasn't he? He's always wanted 2 running backs. You've got Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin there. And it just kind of feels like 7.5 is just enough to make you interested because it's over the touchdown. And you just sort of think, I think the Jets will probably win it. I don't think that the Jets are going to blow them out, because that offense is basically Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And we all know who's going to be on Garrett Wilson all day long. He's going to have to deal with Pat Surtain. And that's going to be really, really difficult for him. It almost marks him out to a certain extent. So you've basically got Breece Hall and Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard and then Braylon Allen.
If
they bring him in.
Now these guys, they'll do okay, and they will be able to get through the Broncos defense and stuff like that. And it's not like they're not going to put points up. I just don't think they're going to win by 8 points. I think it will be less than that. And so because of that, I would be looking at them too on the plus side.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Broncos, especially, this is one of the big topics that people obviously have been talking about the Bears a lot lately. That Caleb Williams is not looking great, making mistakes, really struggling. I think when you look at it, you go, they don't look like they've got much direction at the Bears, and it doesn't look like he's being taught or there's a game plan for him, or it's like, look, let's protect you in these early games and this be the game plan. And if you make mistakes, it's okay. Whereas the Broncos, Sean Payton, I feel like he wants to put the time and effort into Bo Nix. Yes, there was early struggles, but when you watch him play and you see week in, week out, the little intricate changes that he's making, it's like, yeah, I can see what you're doing there. I can see a game plan. I can see how you're going to try and progress him, how you're going to try and get him better. And I think that's why it's really key for these rookies, as we've argued plenty of times, to get an offensive-minded head coach when they go into the league, because there's just a bit more direction and support for them. And I think that's why we're seeing Bo Nix look better week in, week out now going forward. There's still going to be the mistakes because he isn't, he's still a bit, he's a rookie. That's what the word's there for. So there's going to be those mistakes. He needs a year and a half before we see his full potential. But I really, really think that's key, and that really does matter.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that he will. I think he will be able to become a serviceable quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be anything particularly special, I must say, but I think that he is definitely a quarter. I mean, when you see some of the quarterbacks and some of the quarterback play that we've had over the last couple of years, I think there's no reason why he can't be in the NFL and he'll do a reasonable job for whatever team he's on. So, yeah, I think that they look like the defense has always been a pretty solid defense and done okay, and I think it's just about getting him the weapons now. But he seemed to do okay last week, and so I'd rather be on him at the +7.5. Whereas for the Jets side, I think that they can put points up, but I don't see them ever being a team that's going to put like 35 points on a team. They don't come across that way. So it just feels like that I'd rather be on the plus side.
Now, before we move on to some touchdown scores, Adam, while I was scrolling through these, I nearly put some of them in my accumulator, but there's 3 games on this week where I feel like the money line is good on them. I just want your quick fire thoughts on it. Rams at Bears, +3 money line is good for this, I reckon. Rams have got both their tackles back. The wide receiving core that is now new and has come in has now played together for a few games. Now they've had the injuries go out and they look like they're starting to click a bit better. Sean McVay is a genius. Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback. They're going up against the Bears, who we've just said are struggling. Yeah, the defense looks good, but the offense looks ropey. They have got no run game whatsoever. I could see the Rams getting a victory in this one.
Yeah, I like the Rams. They defensively they've struggled. They look quite poor defensively, but they had that one blowout against the Cardinals when basically they were really injured, and so I think that the stats are a little bit harsh on them. I quite like them for this one. The Bears again, they're just not. They just haven't done right by the quarterback again at the moment, and the O line is a mess, and that's kind of the biggest. That's the biggest issue, really. That their O line is a mess, and I know that you came out and said to me a lot that, oh yeah, but when Caleb Williams was at USC, he would run around because the O line was a mess. But it's a bit different. I think
it's
saw
dangerous. It's not just a mess; it's dangerous. You see the clips online where they're letting him players just like walk around them and having a free shot at him. It's like they're not even trying to make a block.
And I think that's why, because people are coming out going, yeah, but you look at him and he's putting all these yards up and he's doing all right. It's just going to take time, and it's a little bit like, well, actually, I don't think it is going to take time because I think he's fine. But I don't think the quarterback is the issue. I think the issue is that once again, the Bears have not put a good O line in front of him, and it's almost like I suppose I'm trying to think of, because they were 9, weren't they, in the draft when they took a Dunze. I was trying to think of who the O line was, but Alton.
Well, you could take.
But,
Well, you've seen
but just
Fuaga.
anyone. There was so many O linemen,
Look
wasn't
how
there?
well Fuaga's doing at the Saints. He's
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal. You
yeah,
loved him, didn't you?
yeah,
You know, he was still on the board. It makes you think. Like you had Keenan Allen, you had DJ Moore. Would it been better to have taken Fuaga? Fuaga can play guard and tackle as well. So he could play
yeah,
all 5 if he wanted. But
yeah.
yeah.
When you look at it, it feels like that. It's in a way, it was kind of the Cincinnati Joe Burrow thing, isn't it, with Chase or Penei Sewell sort of thing. It's that same.
They've already got the wide receivers.
Yeah.
When Joe Burrow took it, they didn't have any wide receivers.
No,
either.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They already had DJ Moore and they traded for Keenan Allen. So, yeah, there was no reason. Really, you got Cole Kmet there as well, so you had 2 wide receivers and a tight end. You would have been fine, and I'm sure they could have picked up someone else, a vet as well. So there was no real reason that they had to go for a Dunze. Yeah, again, it's the O line, and it's not worked for them, and I think that probably means that the whole of this season you're going to get games where Williams is going to be running around like a madman, and it's going to look like it's his fault when it's not.
It's not. Well, I'd argue that the O-line's regressed. It was a medium O-line last year. It was like mid-table for me. Like, yeah, that's serviceable. It's all right. It's got worse.
And I mean, it's a shame. I'm a Packers fan, so I quite like it. But most, for anyone who's a Bears fan, it's a shame because actually everything else is pretty much ready to go.
Now, another one I really like. Love the money line on it as well. Bills. Been one of the most impressive teams so far this season for me. Josh Allen's played at an MVP level already through the first few weeks. Going up against a Ravens team that has struggled. It's had one big game. It's starting to get it clicking. Yeah, you've got new coordinator. Yeah, you've got new pieces on the O-line, but Bills look legit, and they're a 2.5 point underdog. Do you think this is Ravens should be the favorite for this game, or do you think Bills should be getting a bit more respect in this one?
So the Ravens are number 1 against the run, and I think that's probably why you're seeing this, because they are 32nd against the pass, but they're number 1 against the run. And I think that you're seeing this because it seems like as much as the Bills are capable of passing and getting touchdowns that way, it does feel like they are very run first. And so James, you would expect James Cook, Josh Allen, when he's in the running game, to struggle a bit in this particular matchup. But they are capable of passing the ball against a Ravens defense who, like I said, are 32nd when it comes to how many passing yards they give up. So that is it's a bit of a difficult one. It's one where I wouldn't go near it. It could go either way. But yes, I think that they have the potential to win this one, but I wouldn't be looking at it.
And the final one before we move on to some touchdown scores. The Tennessee Titans. They're a 1 point underdog. I feel like the Tennessee Titans have been a few mistakes from Will Levis away from winning all of their games. I feel like they've looked like a talent. There's talent on that team. It's just Will Levis likes to throw the ball directly to the other team and say, "Thank you very much. We don't want the victory. You have it." And the Dolphins. I think there's a possibility if they don't sort out their problems that they've got, that if Tua doesn't come back, they might not win another game the way they looked last week. Struggled to put points on the board with their superstars. Titans could get their first victory here, no?
It's difficult to back Will Levis. It really is, the way that he plays. It's a bit Anthony Richardson, like it's a bit all over the joint, and it's a really, really tough one to sort of make a case for them. Yes, they're playing against a Miami team that offensively look a mess because they don't have a quarterback. Skylar Thompson is clearly not the answer. I think isn't Huntley meant to be playing?
Yeah, I think he's a
Isn't that the
starter.
idea? I think he will be a lot better than Skylar Thompson. I think that when he used to come in for Lamar, he looked like a competent quarterback.
Mm.
And so I think that you'll find that he'll be able to do a lot more, and that will in turn bring in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I do think that will make a difference in this game. It's -1. I would probably be on the Miami side just purely because I think the quarterback play is going to be a lot better. The defense, I would argue for Miami, if you look at the sort of stats wise, they look a bit better as well. They're a bit more consistent on both sides, whereas for the Titans, they're a bit all over the place. And from what I saw against when they played the Packers last week, they never looked in it. Like at any point did they really look like they were going to do anything that serious. They got a tight end touchdown even right at the very end. And yeah, they're not a great team. I think we kind of thought this was going to be the case, and they don't look great. So I'd probably steer clear of them.
Kicking themselves that they maybe give Malik Willis away, maybe.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I don't know if they'd know how to use him clearly. So,
Adam, some touchdown scores now. I know there's been some issues with Bet365 today. I've got a lot of my odds on with them, but we had a look earlier, and all the anytime touchdown scorers had disappeared from the betting markets. Did you want to take a look at any and see if they're on there, or do you want to move straight to the trebles?
So I have got some. I don't know if you'll be able to get it up there, but I've got some with prices that I took earlier. I imagine they're going to be roughly around the same anyway, but these were all Bet365 ones. For the Bengals, I went for Mike Gesicki at 13-5. Obviously, the idea is all of these are over 2-1. I went for Mike Gesicki at 13-5. He's averaging 6 targets a game. And the Panthers are 16th against passing yards. So I feel like that, that it's a defense you can get at. So I like him. Spoke earlier about Alan Lazard. I think that's probably where the ball's going to end up going, because if they're going to mark Garrett Wilson out of the game a bit, it's either going to be the running backs or him. So he's 13-5 as well. He scored 3 touchdowns in 3 games. So I like the look of him. One guy that I have also looked at, Roschon Johnson. There was one sneaky man in our fantasy league who thought it would be a good idea to pick up Roschon Johnson. And then the next day, it came out that they were saying that they were going to start him. So
people know.
Someone was up to no good there, I reckon. But yeah, 11-5 going against the Rams. Spoke earlier about them, 31st against the run. Like the look of that, and DeAndre Swift it hasn't worked. I know the O line isn't great, as we spoke about, but I do think at a price, Roschon Johnson is quite interesting. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. He got 1 touchdown against can't remember who did we play? Who did the Packers play at home? Week 2. Doesn't matter.
Colts?
Yes, we'll go with them. Dontavian Wicks at 9-2. He's had 1 touchdown already. Going up against the Vikings defense. Everyone's saying how amazing this Vikings defense is. Currently 26th when it comes to giving up passing yards. Not that great. Good against the run, but struggle against the pass. So at 9-2, he's the big price one. So like look at him. Darnell Mooney getting really, really involved a lot more with the Falcons, going up against the Saints defense. Week 2, he had 7 targets. Week 3, he had 8 targets. So really like him at 11-5. Terry McLaurin is 2-1 for the Washington Commanders, going up against Cardinals defense, which is average, kind of mid-table against the pass. But he's been getting 6 targets a game, and we are starting to see the difference between Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson. This guy can actually pass the ball. And we saw that in the game last week, didn't we, about how good he was. And The Cardinals' defense are, as I said, pretty average, but they're all right. But you can score on them. Brock Bowers is another one at 13-5. Like the look of this one in a tight game. I don't think there's going to be much scoring against the Browns, but he is averaging 7 targets a game, and big body tight end. He's going to be a target in the red zone, and he's out for 67% of the snaps as well so far in the 3 weeks, so he looks good. And then finally, over 2-1, Keon Coleman for the Bills against the Ravens. As I said, they're 32nd against the pass. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more in this game because the Ravens are just going to bottle up the run. And so 11-4, I like the look of him, who he scored last week, didn't he? And he looked good after his discretion, wasn't it? He got taken out for the first quarter. He wasn't allowed to play or something. I don't know what he did wrong, but he didn't play anything in the first quarter, I read, and then came out in the second and scored and looked pretty good. So yeah, 11-4 for him.
Good, yeah, some nice bets there. Like a lot of them. Trebles. I'll go first. My first one is a game we've covered already. I've gone with Drake London at 15-8 against the Saints. As you said, can be beaten through the passing game. I think that's where they're going to go. A lot of people thought it was going to be Pitts. I actually think it's going to be London that's the guy. And we saw him get his touchdowns already. Next up, I'm sticking with them again. I'm taking Chris Godwin again at 13-8. The odds are still good on him, considering he keeps getting in the end zone against an Eagles secondary that has had its struggles and question marks about it. And then finally, I've topped that with someone who I thought got involved a little bit last week for his first game back, and I think he's going to be heavily more involved this week. And that's T. Higgins at 7-4. That all comes out at just under 20-1 at 19.75 to 1, Adam. 3 solid wide receivers in there. 2 of them are hot, and one of them I think is going to get involved a lot more for the Bengals.
Yeah, like them all. Yeah, Higgins is the one, isn't it? Obviously, because Chase is there, always kind of like puts you off a little bit. But yeah, I think he's going to get more involved. He's got to get more involved. I think that's the thing they need to do. They need to do that. So yeah, I really like that. Godwin again, really solid option. We've been on him the last couple of weeks, and I think that he's just going to keep going, to be honest. So yeah, like that. And Drake London, a little bit annoyed that I missed it. So yeah, I think that Drake London is a good one to go for. He is going up against the Saints defense, but he does seem to be the red zone target, doesn't he? That seems to be what it looked like last week, and also I think the week before when he might have, I think he missed one and then scored one in week 2.
Fourth downs and red zone. They seem to. That's the go-to guy, isn't it?
Yeah. There was one, wasn't it, right at the end as well, when they needed the touchdown in order to win. It went to him and it didn't quite get to him. But yeah, he does seem to be the guy for Cousins. So yeah, like it. Like I say, the only one's Higgins, just because he hasn't been involved much, and that's all. But they need to get him involved more. So yeah, I've gone for Chris Godwin, as you said. I got him at 7-4. It might be worth having a look when you do. It's 7-4. Jaden Reed at 6-4. I just think that he is. I think that for who? T. Higgins.
Yeah.
No, Godwin. So yeah, Godwin. I got him at 7-4. Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed is the player, isn't he? As we've always said, it kind of differentiates between the run and the pass. You can have him in both. So I think that you can have him. So yeah, like the look of Jaden Reed. And then finally, DJ Moore. I just think that they need to get the ball more to DJ Moore. That's the thing. And I think that he's a very capable wide receiver. And at the moment, it's not going to him enough. But I think you saw last week, you've got although the O-line is going to struggle, he's still got, Caleb is still going to throw the ball. There's still going to be loads of yards out there. And I think that that's going to be what they're going to end up doing against this Rams team, where I could almost see him like having to play from behind to try and get back. And so I think that the passing game is where it's going to be. So yeah, all 3 of them was just over 17-1, so not too bad.
Yeah, Dunze seems to be the go-to guy that's got the connection with Williams. That does worry me. Moore seems to have dropped off since Fields has left him when he was a machine.
Yeah. I mean that is the concern with Odunze, and I miss London, so I would quite like to put London in. So
my late game bet. His odds are good again, so I've gone with him. It's Rashi Rice. I've taken him again, 13-10. I've gone with another one that we went with last week as well. I've gone with Marvin Harrison again. The odds are shorter though, 21-20. And I've capped that with something that's got slightly better odds on it. Now, this guy gets no snaps or carries at all, apart from on the goal line, which he's done 2 games already, and that is Alexander Mattison at 2-1. I have Zamir White in one of my fantasy teams, and I watched the game. I was like, "Yep, he's carrying the ball. Yep, he's got them down there. Yep, he's got." Oh no, he's not on the field anymore. It's Mattison. Oh, they've scored. So it looks like wherever they're going to be on that goal line play, it's going to be Mattison that's in there for the touchdown. So I put him in there at 2-1 to boost the odds up. I got it at 13.14-1.
yeah, I mean, I think you probably know the obvious of where I'm going to go with this. Light Rice, Light Harrison. I'm not going anywhere near the Browns Raiders game. I just there's nothing there I like.
Last week I had Devontae Adams, Marvin Harrison, Chris Godwin. Was it? I was waiting on Devontae Adams for the whole game.
You had 2 really quickly, didn't you, in the late games? Yeah, and it didn't come in, very surprising. But yeah, apart from Mattson, obviously not keen on that one. But the other 2, I get it. I get the logic. So you never know, it might come in. My late touchdown treble, Terry McLaurin for the Commanders. I do really think that you're going to start seeing now that I don't think defenses are going to know what to do, because I think that Daniels has got the legs. Brian Robinson is a good running back, and that opens up the passing game. And I think McLaurin is far, far and above anything else that's on that team. And so I just think that he's going to get open a lot. So yeah, 7-4, like him. Juwan Jennings, we're going to go back with Jennings after last week, did really well. Yes, he's going up against a Patriots defense that is good, but they do struggle against the pass a little bit. Christian McCaffrey is still out. Deebo Samuel is still out. Brandon Ayuk does not look great at all. Kittle, I think, is meant to be playing, but even still, Jennings is going to be an option at 13-8. And then finally, and this is the bigger odds one, we're going to go for Quinton Johnson.
Yes, come on. I'm that excited about Quinton Johnson. I've lost him.
Yeah, such excitement about that, and the whole thing.
Where has he gone?
We're going to go for Quinton Johnson, and at 5-2.
He's gone for the time being. You were spinning wheel of doom for a bit. You're back.
Am I here?
Yeah, Quinton Johnson. Talk to me.
Quinton Johnson.
I love that. It's been fantastic.
5-2. He's going up against the Chiefs. Now we don't like backing against the Chiefs because they always do pretty well, but they are 28th when it comes to giving up passing yards. So they do give up yards in that form. And I think that although Lad McConkey has looked okay, he's looked decent, he's starting to feel a little bit like Quinton Johnson's the number 1 choice. And
big guy,
Justin, yeah, and Justin Herbert is, meant to be playing. They're saying that he's going to play.
Hobbling around, yep.
Yeah. So he's probably going to throw the ball quite a lot. And so that's why I went for him as well. All 3 of them, 24.27-1.
I'm going to have a look at some more bets because I want to try and get Quinton Johnson into a bet. So I'm going to be looking at that. Have I just seen that Devontae Adams is out?
No idea.
Raiders have ruled out Devontae Adams. Okay.
There you go. Get on Jacoby Myers. Or get on Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I was just reading it. Breaking news. Raiders have ruled out wide receiver Devontae Adams defensive end Max Crosby and tight end Michael Mayer.
Going well in Raiders world.
Maybe I don't want Alexander Mattison on a bet. Maybe they don't score any points. Well, that's all we've got time for, Adam. Always love doing the show. Always love going through the odds. Fingers crossed we've got a winner this time. We've got to have one this week. There's definitely one there to be had. But till then, thanks for joining us and keep it with the franchise tag.